Good afternoon. Dear friends, it's time to tell you about the great Khan Ögedei, and because we have, of course. Everyone knows about Genghis Khan and is of hearing that somewhere. Someone is almost everyone has heard about Genghis Khan, but whose guess but it was his son, and the second great Khagan of the Mongol Empire almost to Russian readers. And the viewer knows nothing other than narrow specialists today. And let's talk about the eldest son of Genghis Khan was steeper, but a result of Mongol customs. Imagine the throne and say inheritance of a younger son, as well as the result of disputes between the burden of them. Thorin, son of Chucai, Genghis Khan decided that Chucai heir. He will not. This is Louis Jr., his son. He was the heir not to appoint Chil heir to his third son. Guess who was born in 1185 and in his youth took part in many battles and campaigns. And it is known that during the battle against coalition crate of various other tribes of the decisive battle Sorwan Khan, when the disc was defeated, Guest disappeared with the master and bare the feelings of Genghis Khan rescued him. Terribly worried that 18-year-old son out there somewhere, who knows where in general. After the battle there is finally on the third day was a bar tshuva, old faithful, but Kira, and led a son whose life he had saved. He still to wounded who was medical assistance, which bar a dude ahead of time, and all this romantic story. Guess he participated in the campaign in Central Asia, participated in the wars in northern China, and overall he was standing Mongolian Khan, but unlike his older brothers, he had a rare quality, for the ruler was very kind about it. He wrote that he was physically fit. I've had a steady and calm character possess such a feature. When he said some people were inclined to go along with it. Today we call it charisma, and then that word was never. I read that he's very charming here. But like most children, Genghis Khan, he was drunk as a table is essentially the case was filled with them, an alcoholic, then he will become. Hanuman will drink it every day, and I want this to limit the drunkenness of the great Khan. The doctors will install such a ban on a certain number of cups that you can drink daily. Not there are several more cups, but VGT will meet, he will drink smaller cup. But the cup will find yourself more almost every day. Drunk is not prevented him from driving the great empire, because it was a wonderful assistance. He had subdued a Bogota in as a commander of armies, and the chief commander a lot of other great generals. He was or slightly Seiko chief advisor on Chinese affairs, and was Mahmud. I'm a doctor which ruled Central Asia. That is, it's as if it was under control, could afford battlefield, will wash him to the Khan's throne. Occurred after the death of Genghis Khan, then I didn't, whom also died. Legend has it that the clouds were in the counter with his father, that his father ordered to kill, that you found the steps while hunting with a broken ridge. But this is an unfriendly legend that has its roots in writers of the 13th century, who searched for all sorts of nasty things to blacken his memory. And there is another version that says that Chucai and Genghis Khan were close to each other, that she appreciated very much, and was very worried when her son died of fever. And Chucai, he was afraid to tell him that he was ill, and therefore could not come to listen to his beliki. But Genghis Khan decided that something had happened to him there, rushed to the key headquarters, found him already dying. In general, such a heartwarming story is also a legend. It also has no special historical grounds. In fact, we only know that WH died even before Genghis Khan's death in 1227, leaving several children. He had an eldest son, Hord, then the second Saturday, and the third Sanshaba. And since he was a very big fan of the female sex, there was still a lot of kids there. In short, he provided for the western branch of the Genghisids, Chucai Khan, but that's right, Mother Nyagan. So joining the throne of GD, and she did not cause any resistance. And for 2 years before his election to the Kurultai, origin controlled the great empire, and the younger had to approve a successor for itself. The Kurultai is not a national assembly, it is not a democratic body, it is not a military democracy, even if there are no barbarian tribes. Genghis Khan established that the Kurultai includes only the thousands appointed by him, and the highest nobles of statehood, such an aristocratic elite, which he himself brought closer and himself elevated, and appointed. This Kurultai gathered only in 1229, and the truth is that Ögedei was the great Han Solo, and treated his older brother very well. He adored him. And again there is a version of why two famines could not be collected together. And this can only be explained by the fact that Tulu decided to become a Khan himself. Again, there is no mention of this in the sources, but there is information that Tulu and the Gad were on good, and appointed. This Kurultai gathered only in 1229, and the truth is that Ögedei was the great Han Solo, and treated his older brother very well. He adored him. And again there is a version of why two famines could not be collected together. And this can only be explained by the fact that Tulu decided to become a Khan himself. Again, there is no mention of this in the sources, but there is information that Tulu and the Gad were on good terms with each other. Islamic dogs are the reasons for the failures of the Mongols, and that in order to get rid of the black Polson from all of them, to exterminate taxes on apple by the root. A smart person, and she asked this Buddhist what language you were speaking, not Genghis Khan. But that noise was Buddhists did not know Mongolian. He himself had to connect. He said in Turkic, "Where are you lying to him? My father didn't know any other language except Mongolian. I'm not going to execute you out of respect for my brother. But go and tell Chagatai not to send any provocateurs to me in the future." But the truth is later they say that after a while, remembering drunkenly about this Buddhist, any Khan sent a detachment of soldiers who caught and killed, but others write lies, so I don't know. But given that he was a kind man, I don't think he did it. Probably just let her go. But in short, could not Chagatai eradicate Islam? Their winter here Ögedei are that such cases were quite a lot. When the Muslim customs were in sharp contradiction with the laws of the Yosa of Genghis Khan, and Mongol tradition, for example, Islam requires ablution 5 times a day to make and such a neat and religion of the Mongols of the steppe. But what there's a mother line of the water is a rarity, and, moreover, there is folk superstition, which there are a few thousand years, about what to wash in the desert. Is a sin is to court death if you bathe in a storm, that you generally need to be executed immediately and shed the blood on the ground is a terrible sin, for this should be put to death immediately by death. Here Muslims means of sheep slaughtered in bandaged throat, they sacrifice Eid al-Fitr to the feast. Occurs Mongols holidays loved but the sheep. They slaughtered different blood, I had to get to the earth. This terrible sacrilege sin, well that same sin as to step on the threshold of the Khan's yurt. Instant death for that very not particularly fond of ambassadors to scare. And here such case was once much like the Chagatai brought Cougar for Muslim, who pointedly taking a bath in the creek, and in spite of the laws of the Mongols, who were forbidden to bathe in running water and damaged to be beheaded. Ögedei, and who did not want to kill this Muslim, began to ask or hints, so that gave him a hint with that, as saying that he is a poor man because he's lost gold coin, and here it is, and I'm not washed out there in this river, and I was looking for a coin, she fell, and I without it, my only jewel was here, and sent the water to not put in their gold coin, then we found, but the natural found year pricked. See Chagatai Muslim there. He has not violated the laws of the great Genghis Khan. It is just like a coin searched and told me to give him Michan gold coins in general. About the coin, Ögedei was very generous. Generosity was it is the generosity of the nomad, who doesn't know the value of money and doesn't know what taxes are. For example, it is very depressed, should keep around the treasury in the capital of the Mongol Empire, Karakorum, that he himself, on the advice of his father, built in Mongolia when he became the great Khan, where you and the blood were brought here from all over the world, all sorts of decorations, and shilka gold there, and jewelry. Then, well, of course planted a big building because taxes the Mongols were bad guess, just started to enter them. They were small, there is method bar on from the necks. So all in short, this was all serious and it was a pity to spend money for this. The country then announced that guardians from exercising and anyone who wants to get money come to the treasure and get there as much as he can, but the treasury did not cut, not that he absolutely indifferent to money and to enjoy all sorts of scammers who came up with the request to give them the tools. They were given the means would go to him. The old man asked them money for starting a business. The idea was stupid, and Feet understood Cole without hesitation, gave him a bag of gold. Is to ask why to do it, because Rick still had little left to live on, even if they used the state, but nevertheless, despite the fact that he treated money like that and was a man of exceptional generosity, it was under his grandfather and the Mongol Empire that the army first gained some kind of financial system and began to turn into a state. His main merit in history is simply because the spoils began to be scarce. It grew so much that the empires and the appetite of the Mongol elite became so large that even the spoils in China and Central Asia could no longer absorb these bottomless appetites of the Mongol and Mongolian regions, and Vig himself said that he had come to the parental throne. That's what they did. After the deeds of my sovereign and my parents finally conquered the kingdom. But this is understandable, and I'll tell you more about it. Secondly, I established a postal station. Yes, it was about the year that the wonderful Mongolian postal system was created, when there were post stations throughout the empire that housed post horses and could be used by ordinary travelers for money, for little money, and the Tsar before, of course. The ends were given priority. The nobles were traveling there, and there were an insane number of these stations because they carried out their mail trips here. Was his visit that was called Lord? What was the name of what something du? Something seems to be no such was not at all 100 really short, but its ministers were, but I'm crazy. What's it all interfered with and controlled, and these people, they have carried out to elementary financial reforms in these conquered states, put things in order. Their taxes overlaid how much taxes were actually very moderate. Mongol would tithe to China, which led to the fact that he was their 5/6 of the crop were taken 10, then it is not nothing though. Or consider then spread restored old Chinese tax system is almost fully able at first. It was the last of destined tithing all, not in the taxes. Mongolian was the fact that, because it is exactly the barbarous, essentially, a horde of where everything is at military power, and was based the Mongol generals of the Mongol generals. They just took everything I wanted was in these countries, and requisition infinite Mongolian requisition, and abuse of which they followed to the greatest extent, a heavy burden on the people of Central Asia, China, but then Russia, and then the other stand, that was the main evil, because it was an administrative, rather primitive, the structure of the Mongol Empire. The ultimate no prosecutors, any of these tax services individual which they're watching each other. There was no military leader, he was the king god. A military chief rulers did all that wanted. And of course, he wanted his pocket to stuff in the first place. So all note that Mongolian, these rulers, they robbed the people very, very cruel. Guess he knew it and offer ours and was established. Baskikov gift good luck. And Baskikov you like a donkey snake Turkic, and the way it just Mongolian words such a way. That geographical view connectivity. The roads here in the Roman Empire, it was that card, is the Roman road is solid. And she does not like real geographical map, but just like road lines they're noted. How the distance between these point cities and how many to go into. Here about the same Mongol, you understand their vast empire. And ruler a particular way was simultaneously rulers of all the lands, which this road was. But he was not that to pass itself was chief financial inspector. He oversaw all, he was a boss as he was sent. Another bit is that here the local ruler Ivan, to put pressure on him, to put pressure on a shower to survive under the money there. Using all sorts of military so forth. Baskakov hated it hard enough. It was as tax farmers in ancient Rome, they certainly robbed the people with the awesome power, especially to teach what could consider themselves the chosen people. And is there any doubt under your feet what they regret me? A letter from the Russian prince dared to go over and trample it at the dirt under jubilant funds. And also of course poems by contemporary Russian poet, but they are quite clearly conveys obedient relationship. That it was hard, but guess was the con in which those lands, which were conquered by Genghis, to the restoration of order with low level to which he fell after the horrible defeat of the Mongol, the invasion and the ensuing invasion of the collapse of the economic system, respectively, the famine and the collapse of the market, the cessation of supplies, and the like of the disease played there any Chucai, for a miracle began lifting. And academician Barthel spoke about the fact that there are proven facts about the countries of the subordinates, the Mongols, who could benefit from the trade and extensive contacts between West Asia and East. They began to experience a rapid heyday. It was here benefits drunk, and is drinking it his undoing it. The average time I hear the trip to China in 1230 year I of this campaign will tell you. When going to tell you the fall of the empire too, but music he didn't go camping anymore. Not because he didn't want to, God left too. He really started to get very sick. His brother Tuloi died from the effects of excessive drinking, but also from the harsh conditions on the way to China. After that, he was so grieved that he couldn't stop, and drank and drank and drank, and without how endlessly a serious illness. Then he seemed to recover a little there in December 1241. He went hunting despite the doctor's prohibition, caught a cold there, returned and had a party. I'll start with the Muslim Abdurrahmanov, who was a farmer at the end of the reign of G.D. I replaced him with studying, and well, money became so scarce that it was impossible to do without taxes. And during this party, he finally bent over and died during the Western campaign, in which he sent both the grandchildren and the sons of the younger descendants of the Genghises. This campaign was launched and after the Kurultai 1235 year, at which it was decided to conquer the Western countries. Al-Gd organized and sent. It was such a powerful military operation, not naturally, we will tell about 40. Also directly concerns the history of Russia here. GD remained in the memory of the people. As a kind ruler, Genghis Khan was a great ruler, the shaker of the universe in general. His name was shrouded in horror, not by deeds, because under him all these terrible consequences of the Mongol invasions fell upon the peoples of Ögedei, and was a kind ruler. And in Mongolia, for example, they put a monument to him. See you soon.